So when we think about AI today and shadow IT, I ran across an interesting stat that said the average organization uploads 8 gigabytes of data per month into AI platforms. My guess is a large amount of that, the organization doesn't know that's happening, and you're putting your data out there into a lot of places. You need to control where your data is being used.
Welcome to Zero Trust World. I'm Scott Campbell with the Global Technology Industry Association, and we are here in Orlando, Florida to talk with ThreatLocker about all things cybersecurity and all things channel this week. And I am joined right now by Ryan Bowman, the Vice President of Solutions Engineering at ThreatLocker. Ryan, thanks for being on GTI on location.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk about the dangers of shadow IT, but the first thing I want to ask you is you got 2,000 vendor partners, IT service providers, other cybersecurity professionals here. What is the message you're hoping that they'll take back to their businesses, their organizations when they leave?
Yeah, I mean, it's really about education. We want people to come away with some new insights. We're all about defending against the attack, and so we want to give people insights into how those attacks occur, sometimes how easy it is, how strikingly easy it is, and to learn some new defenses against that, to go away from here with some ideas that they can take back with them and make their own environment more secure going forward.
And speaking of education, you're doing a session on shining a light on the dangers of shadow IT. First, can you talk a little bit about what shadow IT is, and then what's going to be in your session? What do you want IT service providers to walk away with from that?
Shadow IT is really just anything that your users are doing outside the control of IT, right? And so, it's apps, installing a new piece of software that you just found and decided to use it. Increasingly, it's SaaS apps. We don't even have to install anything anymore. We're just going to a website, we're creating an account, we're logging on, and now that opens up a whole new array of issues potentially to deal with. Your data, information is being placed in places that you don't even know it's going, because they're just freewheeling it with whatever seems to fit their need for that day.
And that could certainly include AI, right? Like any employee could say, hey, ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, whatever, here's our financials for the last quarter. Please analyze them and give me a report back, right? And then all of a sudden that's out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big piece of this is the data, right? Where your users putting data that are now outside of your control. And, a free AI tool was a great example, because if it's free, they're learning from your data. So now that AI model has your company information that can now be used in disseminating answers to other people who ask questions, which may not be something that you wish to be part of that AI engine. So you have to be really careful where your data goes.
And part of that education, I think, is just learning how to do it right? Like there are policies, procedures you can put in place and safeguards to make sure that data stays secure. Nobody's saying you can't use these applications, it's just how to use them the right way, right?
Yeah, and probably use the ones that IT has put the proper controls and parameters around, right? So if they know it's being used, they know what AI or any other SaaS application you're using, it's controlled. They know how the data is being accessed. They can control and limit what data can go into those platforms, perhaps. And that's the key, right, is to get some controls in place where these applications are being used in the right way. And
what is, I guess, the downside of the dangers of shadow IT? Like, what are the repercussions? Do you guys have, or do you know of any, I guess, anecdotal examples you could give of something that went horribly wrong to show as an example to other people?
So I don't have a specific story, but I did find a stat that says 50% of organizations have been breached in some way. Breach is a broad term, but 50% of organizations breached in some way as a result of shadow IT. So every application that you install comes with the possibility of a vulnerability that you may or may not know about. Nobody's vetted that. Nobody's looked to see that this company has a history of vulnerabilities and maybe a version that's been installed that's vulnerable. And so you introduce vulnerabilities, those applications now aren't being patched, even if there is a patch available, because IT doesn't even know they exist. And then, of course, the data that we already talked about, data doesn't go away. The employee leaves, they uploaded your files to some other platform, it's going to sit there forever and eventually, if that company's breached, your data is exposed and nobody even knew it was ever there.
And that was a great point. So one of the more, I guess, some interesting statistics we put out at our Channel Trends in Cybersecurity Research Report recently, and two interesting stats for me. One is only about a third of IT service providers consider cybersecurity a core capability, which is interesting. And then I think there was close to about a third of IT service providers were also a successful target for ransomware or breach too. So there, I mean, there's a lot of work to do.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I'm a little surprised at that statistic in 2026 that we're only at a third of IT providers who have made security, kind of the front and center, and and the organizations we work with, obviously in the security space, those that are doing that are really being successful in making security really the core offering. I come from an MSP background, and it used to be your help desk services and your support services and your project skills to implement new servers. That was your bread and butter. It's not anymore. It shouldn't be anymore. It should be security. Yeah, you're going to get the help desk. You're going to get the other things that you need. But the most important service that, as a service provider, you should be offering today is really those security services, because that's where it hits the heaviest.
And that's one of the reasons why GTIA put together the Cybersecurity Trust Mark, which is a standard, based on industry standard of protocols, to really prove and to show that you are an assured company, right? That you have met certain minimum standards, and it's a great marketing tool too for you to show out and be like, hey, this proves that I know what I'm talking about. So
yeah, absolutely, and to do it yourself first. Right.
Yes.
It's not fair to ask your customers to implement a level of security that you yourself aren't willing to do. And unfortunately, I've seen far too many service providers with that mindset. We're going to do this on our systems, but we want our customers to do this, and that doesn't track. They can see through that. So as a service provider, it's your duty, it's your responsibility to secure your information, your environment, because of all the access that you have to your customers. And I think that's an important first step to getting your customers to be willing to adopt similar practices. Is you got to do it yourself first.
Yep, perfect. And what's the best piece of advice you have for IT service providers on how to deal with shadow IT, right? Where should they start? What give them some starting steps to get going?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of things. The one thing that we see is a lot of shadow IT comes out of inefficient processes that are provided by the company. If you have an elongated approval process for somebody to be able to use a tool that might help them, or you give them no budget to get the proper tools, that forces them, in quotes, there's options of course, but it pushes them towards, I'm just going to go do this on my own, in my own way. So from an IT perspective, we have to have that human element to say, okay, I understand what you're trying to do here. You're trying to be more efficient at your job. Let's see if we can work together and accomplish that, instead of just saying, no, it's not here, you can't have it. Let's have a dialogue. Let's see if we can allow our people to be more efficient. But you also need to have controls, right? People are going to do things that are going to try to get around tools. I mean, they just go to their home machine and start doing things, right? And so there's always ways to get around it, and so you do need to have those controls. Don't let people install applications that aren't approved. Control how your data is being accessed. Control what SaaS platforms they can go to. There are things that you can do to limit and significantly reduce the impact or the ability for some of those things to be brought into the environment.
All right, that is awesome. So the last question I want to ask is community. Obviously, you guys have a great community going here, evident at Zero Trust World. GTIA certainly is all about community. Talk about the value of community and even the partnership that we have together to help make sure that we're raising the tide for all boats across the board.
Yeah, I mean, look, not many people can be great at everything, right? There might be a few out there. We need each other. We can learn from each other's experiences. I hear so many conversations going on here at the event between attendees, learning from each other, and that's what it's all about. We can learn from each other's experience. What have you done that's been successful? Okay, maybe I can take some elements of that. It might not be exactly the same, but I can learn from your successes, and maybe we can learn from failures as well. I tried this one time and it crashed and burned, so maybe try something different. And that's really what the community is all about, learning from each other, And seeing the success of others, sometimes you can get a little bit down. I don't know if I can do all this. There's so much going on. But when you hear somebody else's success story, it can motivate you to say, you know what, I think I can get to that level. And so I think that's what it's all about.
All right, well, that's awesome. Ryan Bowman, Vice President of Solutions Engineering at ThreatLocker. Again, thank you very much for joining us.
You bet. Thank you for having me.
And again, I'm Scott Campbell with GTIA on location. You can catch our Zero Trust World playlist now live on our YouTube channel, and check us out again, GTIA on location. We'll be coming to an industry event again real soon.